You're listening to The Switch. I'm your host, Stephanie Shaw. Hey, welcome to The Switch. I'm Stephanie Shaw. I'm a multi-certified holistic nutrition coach who, after finding no success with the 18 doctors and 2 world-renowned healthcare facilities I visited, decided I needed to make a switch and take my health into my own hands. Now I'm obsessed with you getting hormonally balanced and emotionally aligned. This podcast is about education, empowerment, and simple no-cost strategies you can implement right now. I'm so excited to be here with you to talk about all things health, beauty, clean living, and mindset. Ready to take your mind and body to the next level? It's time to make the switch. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Switch. I'm here today with Dr. JJ Pursell, and I was just telling her that, I have a girl crush because the things that she puts out, it's so impactful, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear more about it. Dr. Pursell is a naturopathic physician, acupuncturist, author, and entrepreneur. She owned and operated a small chain of herb stores in Oregon and New York. In 2015, she published her first book, The Herbal Apothecary, and that's how I found out about her. Dr. JJ now writes, speaks, formulates, consults, and spends time with her patients. Thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. Welcome.
Yay! Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I love talking about all the things that I've accumulated in my brain. So thanks for letting me share them with your audience.
Yes. So I was telling, and a lot of you guys already know my story about being sick for 2 years and the fact that I chose the route of healing myself naturally. And the herbal apothecary was like one of my my herbal Bible at that time. So anytime I would get a headache, pain, cramp, digestion issue, I would go to the book, figure out what I needed to do, and then do it. And I was able to heal myself naturally, and that's the way I've been able to maintain my health by this resource. So I wanted to make sure that you guys got to meet Dr. JJ. So again, thank you for being here. Your support in the way that you help people and you use plants and herbs to heal people. Tell me, why did you decide to go this route?
Yeah, it's, you're talking about your healing journey, and mine is similar. This is how I got started. I had, in my early 20s, I was on the birth control, and I decided to go off, actually was on antidepressant pill and birth control. And I didn't want to be on it. I was like, I just want to clear all this off of my body and of my processing inside. So I went off both. And I did not have a period for 10 months.
Oh.
And I thought, what is going on? Even though I'm from the Midwest, which the mentality is very different than my authentic self and my interior, I even knew then, this doesn't seem right. I really want to have that connection with my body. Women in general do have a monthly cycle. Why am I not having this cycle any longer? So I went to countless doctors and nurse practitioners and blood tests, similar to you, with little to no results. And a lot of people with, patting on the shoulder, you're young, you're fine, don't worry about it. And I thought, this is crazy. I know something's not right. So finally found a doctor who would give me an ultrasound at the very least. This is 2 years later.
Wow.
And still nothing. And so he at least gave me an ultrasound, and he said, oh, you have polycystic ovary syndrome. Don't worry about it. When you want to have babies, just come. We'll give you some medication. You'll get pregnant. It's okay. And I thought, no, that's not the path for me. Not the path. So very similar. I just started researching. I started digging around and reading whatever I could. How the universe has a way of putting things in your path, whether it's people or books. And I decided that I wanted to try acupuncture.
Mm.
I had read one book. It was called Between Heaven and Earth. It's a really great layman starter book for people who are interested in acupuncture. And it really clicked. It made sense. And so I thought, I'm going to find an acupuncturist. So at the time, there was one acupuncturist in the state of Nebraska, and you had to be an MD in order to practice acupuncture. So I drove 60 miles each way to visit this practitioner. But after one treatment, I had a period
Wow.
3 days after my first treatment.
Wow.
And the first treatment was profound. It was very relaxing, even though I was in a medical center,
Mhm.
at a medical university. I was instantly soothed and relaxed, and I thought, this is something. So that really started my trajectory of realizing that just because the resources aren't readily available, or just because one physician or one medical model doesn't provide you the answers that you need, there's a lot of resources out there, and we just need to start letting people know of all the opportunities that can be available to them in their health. So that's what started me on this journey.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. And I always tell folks, you have to be your own health advocate. So doing the research or finding someone that has done the research that can support you is so powerful. I want to do a little breakdown. I'm going to start at the beginning and then break down like herbs and what they are. And even in the book, so when I first started, there's teas, tinctures, syrups, compresses, capsules. I'm like, okay, which one do I do? How long do I steep?
Yeah.
And all of that stuff. So what's the difference between a tea, tincture, syrup, compress, capsule, and why would you use one in place of another?
That's a wonderful question, and a really common one. So let's first just start with, herbs. Like, what are we doing when we're taking these herbs? So herbs, like a lot of Western pharmaceuticals, are working on the physical attributes of your body. So they're altering a physical function inside of you, right? So when you take it, even though it's a plant, it still is medicine, and it still is causing an action. So I just always like to remind people of that. Just because you can go to an herb shop and it's not prescribed, it will have physical effects on your body. So be aware of that, and be careful of that before you dive in. So there's a couple different reasons why we choose different applications or different ways to take herbs. The number one choice for you should be, which one are you going to be compliant with?
Yeah, that's
Are
with
you going to
everything,
make,
almost
yeah,
everything. Teas.
are you, yeah, see, and I'm the same way. I love making the cup of tea.
Yeah.
I love watching the plants swirl around in the hot water, and it becomes not only kind of a meditative moment, but it incorporates me into the process of my own healing.
Mm,
And I love that.
yeah.
Um, but again, if you're like, I'm not going to be sitting around making tea all the time, no problem. That's why we have capsules. That's why we have tincture, which is a liquid extract in a bottle that you just take drops of. That's why we have topical applications. So really, it comes down to, what type of person are you, and what can you be consistent with? And so that's the number one place I start, because if I can't meet people where they're at, then nothing you take will work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I start there. Now, that being said, we kind of look at what we're dealing with and what we're trying to treat to see what might be the best option for treating. So, for example, let's say you have a kidney or bladder issue that you're dealing with.
Mhm.
Well, a tea is a good way to go, or a digestive issue, because the thing is that you're basically lubricating that whole gastrointestinal tract, or the kidneys or the bladder, with the herbs, as they make their way down. So that's a really beneficial way to take an herbal formula. When I have a headache, I really want it to go away quickly. And so I'll reach for a tincture, because a tincture, again, like I said, it's the liquid drops. What we do is we take plant material and we soak it in something. And we basically ask that solid plant material to break completely wide open and pull all the bioconstituents out of that plant material and put it in a liquid state. So it's basically going from a solid state to a liquid state. Most of the time, that liquid is alcohol. And the reason we use alcohol is because it's one of the few things that across the board can break plants open, break those cell walls open. So that's typically why we use it. At that point, it isn't alcohol based, but it becomes a medicine. You can use other things like apple cider vinegar and vegetable glycerin.
Mm-hmm.
They won't extract every single plant. So you've got to find the plants that'll work in those liquids, but most of the time alcohols will work. But here's the other thing about alcohol extracts or tinctures. Alcohol diffuses directly through tissue. So this is why people can get drunk very fast. Why if you smoke a cigarette and you drink alcohol, it binds to the alcohol and diffuses right through the tissue. That's why it's so harmful. But with medicine, those plant constituents are bound to the alcohol, and it directly infuses through the tissue into the bloodstream, and then it's much more quick acting versus taking a tea or taking a capsule. You have to go through the whole digestive system. So think about the last time, maybe you took an aspirin or you took an Advil for something. It typically took 30 to 40 minutes for it to work because it's got to get all the way down.
Right.
A tincture can work in up to 10, 15 minutes because it goes right to that bloodstream and has a fast acting effect. So those are just did I answer your question?
Yes,
Sorry, I tend to just
no.
go and go and go.
No, you did. I'm like getting educated. I always tell folks, I have a podcast so I can get free education.
I love it.
Are women that come on and they just educate me. I'm like, no, I'm learning. I was taking notes. I'm like, I'm supposed to be taking notes to write copy. I'm taking notes for myself here.
Good.
So I know that most of us have like our favorite herbs, like, and you've mentioned herbs as allies that you keep on hand. So personally, I always make sure I have marshmallow root, fennel, ginger, lavender, oregano. What are some that you always keep on hand? And
oh gosh.
I know you probably have 1,000,001.
I do. And you know what? It rotates.
Okay.
It really does rotate. Depending on the season. So I really like working with the quarters of the year. So, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. I really like breaking it down that way because it's probably just my nature. I like to be one step ahead. So
you're planning for allergies and then planning for the flu season. I gotcha. All right.
Yes.
This is good. Okay.
Yes.
So give me the formula.
Yes. So I like, in my September, October, well, would that be August, September, October, I tend to really focus on respiratory. I'm getting my respiratory system primed because, come September, it gets colder in most places, even in warmer climates, it cools down. So we're closing windows, we're going back to school, we're doing those things where then all of a sudden your respiratory system can get challenged really quickly. In the December months or in the winter time, I'm really working on immune support. I'm not working on stimulating my immune system because my immune system should be able to be stimulated when I need it to. I don't want to stimulate it all the time because then if I come across something, then I want to give it a quick little stimulant, So let's talk about things that I do. One of them, like for this particular time of year, we're in December when this is being recorded. So I am an ashwagandha person. I love ashwagandha. It is an incredible adaptogen. And in these times of stress and overwhelm, whether it's due to the events going on around us or the holiday or your life, whatever it is, remember when stress goes up, immune system goes down. So let me say that again. When stress goes up, immune system goes down.
Yeah.
So we really want to make sure that even with all of the stress that is whirling around us at any given day, we're keeping our internal stress mechanisms holding steady. And ashwagandha is a wonderful herb for that. It really fortifies our central nervous system and our automated reactions. So even if you're the type of person that, I know for me, for a long time, I was in a go, go, go state. Pretty much, the alarm would go off in the morning, and it was like the shot starting at the beginning of a race, and I would run all day long and then collapse at night. So even though my life has changed quite a bit, I still can quite easily physically be in that mode of
Right.
go, go, go. It's
Right.
because I've trained my body, right, to do that. So a lot of times I have to stop and be like, why am I rushing my children like there's an emergency out the door to get to, XYZ. There's nothing happening. But
Yeah.
that pattern is so ingrained. I really have to recognize it, take a step. But the ashwagandha on a regular basis really, really helps. And actually, I mix it right in with my coffee
Mm.
first thing in the morning.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
So if you're making coffee, add a little ground ashwagandha in there. It's a root, so it's just going to add to the full body of your flavor. It doesn't alter your coffee taste at all, really, but it just is a nice way to get it in first thing in the morning. I almost always have chamomile in my house and on hand, and that is 24/7 all year round. I love the soothing gentleness of chamomile. It's such a strong nervine support. So think about when you get nervous or anxious, or you have a big something going on, or you're a student and you have a test, you can almost feel your nerve endings kind of vibrating or tingling, or when you get like tremors because you're really anxious, that kind of thing. What the chamomile does is it calms those nerve endings down and stops that like excitation pathway. So it really, really helps to calm, and it actually helps to calm the brain and helps to promote clear thinking, which who doesn't need that?
I know,
Without,
right?
yeah, without the like, oh, I have to have caffeine so that my brain will work. Well, we don't want to be drinking caffeine all the time. We
Right.
want our brain to work in a more natural state. And so by doing that and supporting the central nervous system, you're really giving a leg up in that brain function.
How are you? So we're in the middle of COVID and all of that that's going on. How are you supporting your health now? It's in my mind, I think it may be a little easier for, and I'll say us, because we're already doing things on a more regular basis to support our health. But what are some, and we're not giving recommendations to anyone because we don't have your actual medical history, but what are some thoughts around what can support people in the middle of this virus that we're in?
Yes, this craziness that
Right.
we're
Yeah,
in.
I was
Yes,
trying to think
it's
of an
crazy.
appropriate word, but there was words coming that I probably shouldn't have said, so I just
No,
paused.
we're just in crazy town right now is
Yeah,
where we are.
crazy.
And we're all just holding on. And it's interesting. I'll have patients who say, well, it's just the whole COVID thing, it's just not really affecting me. And I hold space for
Mhm.
that belief. But I have to say, I think underlying, it's affecting us all, whether you are aware of it or not. There is a steady undercurrent. We've adapted amazingly well in the last 9 months. But there is an underlying current that is flowing constantly that we have to maintain.
Yeah.
And that takes an exorbitant amount of energy.
Mhm.
So my go-tos during this time, to be frank with all of you, is be proactive. If you're not doing anything, choose one thing to do. Don't make a list of 20 things that you want to change about your health in your life right now.
Won't
That's
happen.
it's very ambitious. And if you can do it, that's wonderful. But I think that has the potential to add more stress in your life.
Yeah.
So choose one thing. Perhaps it's sleep. Perhaps you can dedicate the next 30 days to improving your sleep. And how do you do that? It could be turning off the TV and the computer 30 minutes before you go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
It could be choosing the same time to wake up and go to bed every single day. It could be, really looking at your bedroom. What can make it more conducive to sleep? Are there sounds that are disturbing? Is there light in your room that is, pervading in your sleep, whether you know it or not? Having a lit place, a light outside, a neighbor's garage, light, anything. Those kinds of things do affect. Maybe it's hydration. You're like, I'm going to commit 30 days to drinking the amount of water that I should be in a day.
Right.
Maybe it's, I'm going to choose 30 days to eat organic foods and whole grain foods. Whatever it is, just choose one thing, and that one thing will give you a leg up. But right now, with everything that's going on, there's no room not to be proactive. We have to take steps to maintain our health, and we have to be proactive in that movement.
And I like the way that you spoke to the fact that you may not actually have the virus. You may not know anyone that has the virus, but it's impacting everyone. Either they have fear, so that impacts your health. People are angry, that impacts your health. People are confused, that impacts your health. So at some level, we're all being impacted by what's going on right now. And while you said sleep, hydration, whole foods, people may think, oh, that's no real advice. That is like the most essential advice that anyone can do, everyone needs to do. And you would be completely amazed at how something like going to bed on time and waking up on time, how that completely changes your whole life. Just think about the schedule you set up for your child when they were younger. You know what happens at 2:00 in the afternoon if your child has not had a good night's sleep. And we're the same. We're the same. So that advice was incredible. That was really, really something I hope that people hear, because those are things that we need to all start to implement. Yeah.
For
So
sure.
a lot of the women that I work with have issues with their hormones, a lot of issues with inflammation in the body. What are some ways for women to use herbs to heal their body?
Sure, lots of different ways. In the last year, I've done ever more research on metabolic function and really starting to go beyond the lab test. So the lab test, I'm really looking at, these are clues. These are not end alls to check boxes to put us in a diagnosis. That's very, very short-sighted, I'm finding. So what I've started to do is look at the labs that you might get if you're having these, hormone disruptions, and you've been to your PC and they say, oh, everything looks fine, but you're not fine. So what I've started to do is started to put these different metabolic pieces in place. So there are thousands of processes going on in the body every single day. And they're usually divided into two camps. You're either building something up, like a hormone, or you're breaking something down, like another hormone. So we really want to help support these processes and understand where in the loop is yours getting snagged. Just because a lab test says that you're B12 deficient doesn't mean you should run out and start pumping your body with B12. it could be at a different part of the pathway that you are getting snagged, and we need to look and identify that part of the pathway to ensure that you're reaching your health goals, right? So when I look at this and overlay it with herbs, I'm trying to identify what herbs can help the overall pathways to improve endocrine health. So when we look at basic guidelines for herbs and supporting women's health or men's health in the sex hormone or general metabolized hormones, we want to make sure that we're not overstimulating or we're not eating up too much of a hormone that might be free floating in the bloodstream. So a lot of people think, oh, I've got excess estrogen, I have to get it out of my body.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes that excess estrogen, the reason it's there is because it's protecting something else. So we just need to support the balance of the overall system, right?
Right.
One of the best ways we start doing that is really looking at the liver. The liver is like home base for hormones.
Yes.
So if your liver, which has two phases, it has phase 1 and phase 2 of detoxification. And so if your liver is struggling in either side of that, then you're going to most likely end up with a hormone disruption. So we want to start phasing in the herbs that support that liver function. And I really like to start easy and gentle. Again, Americans have the mentality that more is better and bigger is better. And I'm here to say that when it comes to our health, just start gentle, start little and gentle, because you don't know what kind of effect you're going to have with something until you start taking it.
Yeah.
So let's start easy with some dandelion root.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dandelion root can be so supportive for the liver, but also blood sugar. It's
Mm-hmm.
a major herb that we can use, which often goes hand in hand, with the liver and how our body is producing or packaging away insulin and blood sugar issues. So starting with that dandelion root, and I love to drink dandelion root first thing in the morning. Make it before you go to bed, let it steep overnight. In the morning, strain it and drink it. Another leg up with the dandelion root is if you drink it first thing in the morning, it can really reduce blood sugar cravings.
Mm.
That's what I have found.
Yeah.
And for me and anyone else that's addicted to sugar, it
Me.
can be a game changer. All of a sudden you're not reaching for that chocolate at 10:30 or 2 in the afternoon. It really, you just kind of sail through, and it's very, very helpful.
Mm.
Another herb that I really do love is chicory root.
I haven't used chicory root. I've heard of it, never used chicory root.
It's like the most beautiful roadside weed you'll see everywhere growing out of rocks.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. My oldest son's a landscape architect, so he's like points everything out, and then he gets mad if we can't. I'm like, I can't remember everything that I see growing on the side of the road.
But that's the point. It's growing everywhere. Here's all this medicine just waiting for us.
Oh, I know. Sorry to interrupt you. So
No, I love that. And it's really true. And the funny thing is like you can go out into your backyard and probably find at least 5 plants that you can readily use.
All right.
So helpful. But the chicory is this amazing, again, you use the root. Anyone who is from the South, my family's from the South, so we add it to coffee. Again, it's got a really robust flavor, really nutty, full, yummy flavor. But you don't have to add it to coffee. You can just drink it. And again, a wonderful liver, but also paired with the gallbladder. So it's really helping. Gallbladder is so important. What does the gallbladder do for us? It secretes bile, which then binds anything that we don't need to excrete it out through the natural pathways, right? So having that herb that kind of works in duality with the liver and the gallbladder is amazing. And then I just have to say, because it's a tried and true, it's not an herb, but good old-fashioned castor oil packs are
Oh,
so helpful for hormone disruption. They really, really, I mean, I can't tell you how many patients have like come in and been like, oh my gosh, my night sweats are completely gone, or my period is back on a regular cycle. So I really encourage that simple home remedy as well.
so I'm cracking up. You guys won't be able to see me, but I kid you not, 3 weeks ago, my mom told this story. She was talking to one of my cousins, and they were talking about, because they're from the South too, so they're from Alabama, and they were talking about home, concoctions and why don't people use those anymore. And she said, I remember when Stephanie was a little girl and I gave her castor oil, and she said, can you please just let me die, mommy, the next time? Because it tasted so horrible.
Oh, and castor internal isn't, it's a rough ride.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe a tiny teaspoon, but still it's so oily and horrible. Oh my
but it
gosh.
works. It
Yes.
worked. But I'm like, yeah, just let me die. She's like, I'm super tiny, like 5 or under or something.
Oh, that's such a great story. I love it.
Said that. Yeah, but I love what you're saying. What about reishi? Do you ever recommend for the liver?
I love reishi mushroom. I also really love lion's mane and cordyceps. And I love using them in tangent or in rotation because, the reishi is like immune supreme, right? It builds that immune system up, works on the endocrine level as well. But the lion's mane, even more so on the endocrine, it's wonderful at the, again, adrenal fatigue that so many people have. And again, if you're having any kind of cortisol issues, so when I'm talking about the adrenals, if you don't know much about them, they're just these little glands. They sit by the kidneys and they pump out cortisol. And cortisol does a whole bunch of things.
Too much.
Blood sugar, and they help emotional balance and stress and inflammation, right? So those are heavy hitters in our body. And
Mhm.
so if they're also sex hormone building blocks, cortisol. So if you're constantly putting out cortisol because you are not balancing your blood sugar, you're eating whenever you have time or just on any, random schedule, or you've got some kind of chronic inflammation going on in your gut or in your body from an injury, or if you're having a lot of emotional turmoil in your life. Like, I had one patient who she and her mother unfortunately did not have a positive relationship. So every time she would see her mother calling on her phone, she would get adrenalized because she was so anxious about having to take that call, right? So if you're pumping out that cortisol all the time, eventually you start running out. And
Yeah,
so think about who gets hit first. Thyroid's not necessary to survive,
yeah.
right? So thyroid kind of says, well, I'll hit the snooze button on me so you can pump that to more important areas of your body. Well, what goes second? Ovaries.
Mhm.
You don't need ovaries to survive. So the snooze goes on the ovaries and then it cascades from there. So again, using the mushrooms, yes, highly recommend supporting that system for sure that way.
Awesome. I have learned so much. This is so exciting for me. I could talk like for 3 hours about this or more.
That's what I said. I told you I can just ramble and ramble and ramble.
This is so exciting. So I also know that you are an animal, and we'll switch subjects a little bit, but I know
Okay.
you're an animal and earth activist as well. How can people take on this role, and why is it so important?
Well, I mean, it's important for a thousand and one different reasons. But I will just say this, if we don't protect our environment and all of the creatures that are in it, it disrupts balance.
Mm.
So, think about when, to give people, I'm not going to tell everyone they should stop eating meat. I don't believe that. Um, I think everyone has to make their own choices. But I do think you have to have everything in balance. There's a reason the world was created the way that it is with all of the creatures, including humans. And we have to have that cadence in order for everything to thrive. So, the bees, we don't protect our bees, we're not going to get pollination or cross-pollination. That creates a whole agricultural collapse.
Yeah.
There goes our food chain, a big part of our food chain. So, buying mason bees and sticking them up somewhere in the eave of your house, supporting beekeepers and the bee population is really important. Buying plants that are not sprayed with niacinamide, which is the bee toxin. So unfortunately, I love going to Home Depot. I cannot lie. I love, plants. So it's hard for me not to buy plants when I see them. But you do have niacinamide on a lot of these big box store plants. You put those in your garden, the bees come to eat it and it kills them. That's no good. So we have to buy plants that, don't have these toxins, so we can support, these very, very precious balances in our world. And as far as plants go, plants are the lifeblood of the earth, and they are our medicine. Another time I'll share the story of how plants came to help humans, but they're there for us and for each other, and they offer amazing insights into how to adapt and thrive and survive in this world. And so having them around is pretty darn important.
Yeah, they are. Thank you so much. This has been so enjoyable for me.
Me too.
Yeah, well, good. I'm happy you enjoyed it as well. So Dr. JJ, tell folks how they can learn more about herbs and how they can learn more about what you do.
Sure. So, well, of course, I've written 3 books. So if you want to pick up a book, they're always handy. I'm a book person. So,
paper copy person.
What's that?
Paper copy book person. I want the big book.
Yes. I love being able to pick something up and reference it right away. There is amazing classes out there, and this might be a time when we're maybe not as active and social that you decide to dive deeper in your learning. And so there's a ton of free online resources like the American Herbalist Guild. They have a lot of free online webinars that you can participate in and gain information. Sometimes I'll take an online seminar or an online class. I'm still learning always. I will never have all the information. So, but I'll take a 3-hour online webinar, and that'll be enough to chew on for like 3 months, just like thinking about it and raising my own questions about what I learned or digging in deeper in something that was mentioned that I don't know anything about. But you know what, my tried and true, it always goes back to Rosemary Gladstar. She has an incredible online course. I'm not paid by her to promote her. I just love her dearly. And that's where I started. I started with a home course of Rosemary Gladstar, and it was 10 packets and they get delivered and you just work through them. And to this day, I think it's one of the most valued courses out there.
Yeah. So before we started the podcast, Dr. JJ and I were talking about pigs in the home. And I won't even explain it to you. I'll just let your mind wander. So the lady I was telling you about, she actually worked for her.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
For her. And she's in my community. So she's a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure she is. I mean, just to be around Rosemary is like a pouring of positive vibration. So that's such a gift that she had. Yes. I truly cherish her.
Yeah. So thank you once again. I'm so excited that you took this time to be with me. Everyone, I will put information below on how you can get in contact with Dr. Pursell. Again, I thank you. And to everyone else, here's to your health. I am so excited for you because you just finished another episode of The Switch, which means you are the fierce person I already knew you were. If you're ready to join an exclusive group of other fierce high performers like you, a group where you can bounce ideas off one another and ask questions, be sure to join our exclusive Facebook community. You can find the link below.